Those wonderful people at Modelling for Advantage have sent me some more goodies to review, so I'm sharing them with you. Let's take a look at the Easy Eight Sherman, the latest Sherman variant released in the American Bulge wave in Flames of War. A variant of the M4A3 Sherman, the Easy 8 has a number of changes and refinements. Join me for a look at the plastic Easy 8 kit from Battlefront. This is UBX91, the M4 Easy 8 tank platoon box set for late war American forces in Flames of War. Battlefront have quite a few Sherman variants in plastic now, but I've been waiting for this one. I've already reviewed Battlefront's earlier excellent plastic M4A3 kit, but this kit represents that last major wartime production variant. You can see from the box art that the Easy 8 Sherman adds the new horizontal volute suspension and wide tracks. The M176mm gun also gets a muzzle brake. Based on the M4A3, the M4A3E8 or Easy 8 reached the European Theatre of Operations in December 1944. The Easy 8 retained the welded hull and Ford GAA engine of the base M4A3, but it introduced a new horizontal volute spring suspension and wider tracks. The wider tracks solved a long-standing problem with ground pressure and mobility. The Sherman's original narrow tracks were fine on roads or solid ground, but on bad going or mud the tracks lost traction and tended to sink. Wider tracks spread the same weight over a larger area, improving flotation over soft ground. The wider tracks, new suspension and stabilizers combined to make the Easy 8 a stable gun platform, improving accuracy. Easy 8 was the version of the Sherman retained in service by the US Army after the war, giving good service in the rugged terrain in Korea. Let's look at the plastic. Each Easy 8 Sherman comes on a single sprue of olive green plastic. As expected with modern Battlefront kits, the level of detail is good and appropriate for a wargaming kit. Moulding of parts is crisp and sharp with no flash. The first sprue has the upper and lower hull parts, as well as two options for glasses plates, open and closed commander's hatches and the transmission cover. The upper hull has plenty of detail moulded in strong relief. The characteristic engine covers for the Ford GAA engine are shown here, as well as the larger crew hatches for the driver and bow gunner. There's plenty of moulded on tools as well. The unique feature for this kit hull are the extended fenders. The new horizontal volute suspension system used wider 23-inch centre-guided tracks, but the actual Sherman hull width was unchanged. This meant the fenders had to be widened to extend out over the exposed portions of the wider track run. The lower hull piece shows the differential keying for the track parts. This means you can't put the tracks on the wrong way. The transmission is the one-piece design used later in the war. By this stage of the war, American factories had all adopted tooling to forge these larger castings, eliminating the need for the three-piece bolted transmission housing. The standard glasses plate here is moulded separately from the hull. The headlight detail is simplified, but sufficient and durable enough for a wargaming model. The bow 30 caliber machine gun is moulded integral to the glasses plate rather than being a separate piece. The glasses plate has the gun cradle for the 76mm gun moulded on. There's also the open and closed versions of the commander's hatch. This is the vision coupler with vision blocks and a single-piece hatch. The vision blocks gave the commander significantly improved visibility and situational awareness over the rotating periscope mounted in the older split hatch coupler. The other glasses plate is the up-armoured version. Up-armoured Shermans were field-modified with extra armour plates welded onto the glasses and hull sides for extra protection. Again, this piece has the 30 caliber machine gun moulded on. Because of the way the parts are engineered, there is some excess plastic under the 30 caliber barrel on the up-armoured glasses. This will not be very visible on the completed model, but it would be easy enough to undercut if it bugs you. The final parts on this sprue are some spare track links for the new wider track. The second sprue has the turret and one-piece track parts as well as guns, mantlet and storage. There's also some add-on armour pieces here too. The upper turret piece has some nice detail. The commander's hatch can be open or closed, while the oval loader's hatch is moulded closed. The one-piece oval loader's hatch was a later T-23 turret innovation, replacing the initial circular split loader's hatch. Speaking of the T-23 turret, its shape is complex and notoriously difficult to model. Battlefront do a reasonably good job here, but the overall shape is maybe a bit too round and should maybe be a bit longer out to the mantlet. John from All Miniatures Great and Small has an Easy 8 video comparing the plastic turret and the old resin turret together. Maybe check that out. Link in the description below. But the plastic turret shape is generally okay for 15mm and is used for all Battlefront plastic T-23 Sherman variants. The two rectangular pieces here are the hull side armour for the up-armoured variant of this kit. These should be fitted well forward on the hull. The lower turret piece is pretty simple. The mantlet here looks fine and there is D-shaped keying to get the main gun positioned correctly. This will ensure the muzzle brake will end up in the correct orientation. The two other pieces here are the turret armour panels for the up-armoured version. These go on the turret cheeks either side of the mantlet. The tracks are one-piece parts with differential keying to ensure they only fit on one way. They represent the new horizontal volute suspension system with wider tracks. The tracks look like the T-80 track pattern. Wider tracks reduce the tank's ground pressure, resulting in better flotation over soft ground and mud. Combined with the new suspension, this gives the Easy 8 the smooth ride special rule in Flames of War. More about that later. The HVSS suspension is well modelled and there are some nice bolt detail on the road wheels. It should look good painted up. The gun here is the 76mm M1 cannon fitted with a muzzle brake. The brake vented propellant gas to the side, helping reduce the dust and debris kicked up by the muzzle blast. It also helped reduce the gun's significant recoil. The 30 caliber machine gun here is another optional part that was occasionally fitted on a pintle mount welded to the top of the turret. The 50 caliber machine gun is actually the most commonly found commander's weapon mounted on top of the turret. Other than that, the remaining parts are stowage pieces including a jerry can and box. So those are the kit parts for Battlefront's new plastic Sherman Easy 8. Parts and moulding are up to Battlefront's usual excellent standard. It looks like it will build up into a nice miniature. Battlefront have quite a few different Sherman kits now. It's interesting comparing this new Easy 8 sprue to the 2014 plastic M4A3. This sprue reflects the simplicity of modern Battlefront engineering with a lot less parts and options, but it shares the same overall feel and has all the options that count to give some scope for variety and customization. Let's look at using the Easy 8 on the table. Here's the unit card for the M4 Easy 8 tank platoon. The E8 costs 1 more than a late Sherman 76 and 2 points more than the late Sherman 75. What do you get for the points? A lot of the stats are standard for late Sherman, so I'm not going to cover everything. Let's just look at some of the important differences. The big addition is the smooth ride special rule. The back of the card says smooth ride means the team doesn't suffer a +1 penalty to hit for stabilizer if it moves less than 4 inches or 10 centimeters in the movement step. I haven't seen a definitive ruling on it yet, but if smooth ride works in addition to the blitz movement order, then successfully combining these might give you up to 8 inches of movement on the table before you suffer the stabilizer penalty. We'll have to see if this is clarified in lessons from the front at some point. The standard US Bulge Easy 8 card here is aggressive, hit on a 3+. However, the veteran version is still careful, hit on a 4+. Armour is unchanged from other late Shermans at 7 front, 4 on the side and rear and 1 top. This makes sense. Tactical and dash movement is the same as well, except for the cross-check. The wider tracks and HVSS suspension give Easy 8 a 2+ cross, one better than other late M4s. You can confidently take Easy 8s over rough ground and expect them to make it. The 76mm gun is the same as other late 76mm armed Shermans, with the no HE and stabilizer special rules. The Easy 8 is available in the US Bulge M4 Sherman Late and Veteran M4 Sherman Late tank companies. By this stage of the war, Sherman units were a mixture of 75mm and 76mm types, depending on availability of replacement tanks. This diversity is reflected in the Bulge lists. Sherman platoons are pointed for M4A375s at 5 points each. You can take 3, 4 or 5 tanks in a platoon. But the options is where it gets interesting. You can replace the base 75mm tanks with late 76mm tanks or Easy 8s, but the mixture of types within the platoon is up to you. Replacements are listed as any or all, So in a 5-tank platoon you could have, for example, an M4A375, 2 M4A376s, an Easy 8 and a Jumbo, or any other combination of types you felt like. The only limitation is you can only have one Jumbo per platoon. You might end up with a handful of different unit cards for the different types in the platoon. It might be a pain to manage all the different stats and capabilities of the various tanks in the platoon, but this accurately reflects the mixed composition of US tank platoons by this stage of the war. In fact, the mixed nature of units is reflected in the company structure as well. You can field a mixture of M26 Pershings, Shermans, Chaffee or Stuart light tanks, 105mm assault tanks or Calliopes or even 81mm mortar tracks. If you have a spare 16 points, you can even throw in a T26 Super Pershing. These bulge lists really do allow you to mix and match your armoured force. There'll be no such thing as a typical bulge Sherman company. So that's the 15mm Easy 8 Sherman kit from Battlefront. It's a nice kit and well up to Battlefront's usual standard. While this modern kit has a lot less options than the 2014 M4A3 kit, it still has enough options where it counts. You will be able to build 2 different variants, the standard and up-armoured E8 Sherman from this kit. Plus there is enough stowage on the sprues to customise and personalise the individual tanks in the unit. The question I would ask is, does the Easy 8 bring enough extra capability to the table to be worth the extra points? Stats-wise it is very similar to the other late war 76mm Shermans, but a lot of that will be personal choice. The bulge lists reflect the mixed and slightly chaotic composition of US tank platoons during these closing stages of the war in Europe. Units operated different types based on losses and the availability of replacements, and the Easy 8 was part of that. But for my part, I've been waiting to build the Easy 8 in plastic for a long time, and I'm happy it's finally here. Thanks again to Modelling for Advantage for kindly supplying this review kit. Their generous support helps me bring this sort of content to you. MFA is a great channel. Check out their shenanigans on YouTube at the link below. Thanks for watching. See you for the next one.